not merely as the makers of a new Nippon, not merely as the makers of a new East Asia, not merely as the makers of a new Asia, but as the makers and the architects of a new world. Sisters and brothers of Nippon, allow me first of all to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the exceedingly warm and cordial welcome you have given us this morning. This is Subhash Chandra Bose speaking to Indians in East Asia. My countrymen in East Asia, while I am in Tokyo, I desire to address a few words to you, and I have no doubt that you will give them due consideration. In the first place, I desire to thank you most heartily for the warm and enthusiastic welcome that you have given me on the occasion of my public appearance in East Asia, and for the assurance that you have given me of your wholehearted support to our efforts to liberate our dear motherland. I feel overwhelmed at this manifestation of your burning patriotism and spirit of sacrifice. I have received numerous telegraphic and postal messages from you direct, while other messages I have read in the press. And all these messages have given me great joy and satisfaction. You know that I am always an optimist. Nevertheless, I must say that the response that I have received has exceeded my fondest expectations. I can only say in reply that I feel proud of you. Since the outbreak of the war in Europe and in East Asia, I have been saying repeatedly that we, the Indian people, could not have wished or even dreamt of a better combination of circumstances for helping us to achieve our liberty. When the world forces are helping us in this way, our task has automatically become very much easier than what it would have been otherwise. This fact should further strengthen our self-confidence and optimism and hearten us considerably in the fight that lies ahead of us. I am overjoyed to see that you have already realized that the responsibility of winning freedom does not rest merely on the shoulders of our countrymen at home. It is but natural that they should bear the brunt of the burden, and they have been doing so already. But at the same time, every Indian, no matter where he may be living at the present time, has a duty towards his country, and he must contribute his due share towards the final victory. I am convinced that India cannot hope to be free until all Indians living abroad perform their duty in this momentous world crisis. Owing to the fact that the tripartite powers have been giving their fullest support to Indian independence, it is comparatively easy for Indians living in Axis countries or in countries controlled by the Axis powers to play their part in the national struggle. Consequently, among those Indians who are now abroad, I expect that Indians living in Axis countries or in countries controlled by the Axis powers will render the maximum service to their motherland. Here in East Asia, you have seen for yourselves how deep is the interest in and sympathy for Indian independence. The readiness of the Imperial Japanese government and nation to render us any assistance in our national struggle that we may need has naturally lightened our task to a considerable degree. Consequently, there can be no possible excuse why any Indian in East Asia should not pull his whole weight in the present struggle. But though the Axis powers and Japan in particular are prepared to help us at any time and have been actually doing so already, the task of liberating India is ours and ours alone. That responsibility we shall not cast on anybody else, because that would be against our national honor. Moreover, we have no right to ask for or expect help from any quarter until we ourselves have first of all done our very utmost. Our countrymen and our sisters and brothers at home have been doing their best in the circumstances in which they are placed. But the enemy is ruthless and desperate, and he is armed to the teeth. Against such a brutal foe, no amount of civil disobedience or of sabotage or of revolutionary terrorism can be of any avail. If therefore we want to expel British power from India, we have to fight the enemy with his own weapons.
Seldom does one come across a person, especially from a distant land, who is devoted to your country and wants that his country should come closer to yours. Saichiro Misumi, who entered into his 100th year on 16th June 2015, can easily be called an architect of India-Japan relations, as he spent 70 years of his precious life in promoting the bilateral ties. As JIA office bearer, Mr. Misumi considered himself fortunate to have not only met Indian leaders like Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, K.R. Narayanan and I.K. Gujral, but also for having personally known Indian freedom struggle hero Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Acknowledging the yeoman services of this great lover of India, the Indian government conferred the Padma Bhushan on Mr. Misumi on 30th March 2015 for promoting ties between Japan, the land of the rising sun, and India, the land of sunshine. Indeed, for Mr. Misumi, it was a special moment when he received the award from President Pranab Mukherjee. The Second World War broke out soon after Mr. Misumi joined the JIA. As the Great War drew to a close, the JIA was banned by the occupation army, as it had cooperated with the Indian independence movement. Not deterred by the adverse turn of events, Mr. Misumi turned the challenge into an opportunity. He started the India-Japan Economic Promotion Committee. As its executive director, he worked to promote ties with India, which went on to achieve her independence in 1947. Following the signing of the peace treaty between India and Japan in 1952, the JIA regained its original name and Mr. Misumi became its managing director. After the Second World War, when Japan was devastated, Mr. Misumi was instrumental in arranging iron ore from India for reconstruction work in Japan. In the initial years of his association with JIA, Mr. Misumi was responsible for coordinating with Japanese companies and also for compilation and publication of Business Directory and the JIA newsletter. In addition to promoting person-to-person interactions, Mr. Misumi made painstaking efforts to publish a catalogue every year, introducing to India the various products of Japan. Spending a lifetime on cementing the India-Japan relations, Mr. Misumi was in for a pleasant surprise when one day he found Prime Minister Narendra Modi, about whom he had heard so much, in front of him at an official function. The function was hosted in honor of Prime Minister Modi by the JIA and Japan-India Parliamentary Friendship League. Prime Minister Modi leaned on him and talked to Mr. Misumi, and he too sat silently watching closely. Mr. Misumi recalls that the warmth of that meeting with Mr. Modi reminded him of the warmth with Subhash Chandra Bose, whom he had hugged so close that they could hear each other's heartbeat.
お互いに抱き合ってしかもね、もうずいぶん長い間話さない。まあね、やっぱり歴代首相のうちでね、最もインドに日本に理解のある人の一人だなというそういう感じを持ちましたね。
I heard that he said that he was reminded of Subhash Chandra Bose when Prime Minister touched him, hugged him. Over there, he of course didn't utter any word. That was the feeling probably he had in his heart, and later on probably he converted that into words.
India and Japan have in the past been bound by deep cultural ties which are about 20 centuries old. In recent times, these cultural relations have been interrupted because of the British domination of India. It is, however, certain that when India is free, these relations will be revived.
Bose, according to Mr. Misumi, was the first to look east by turning to Japan, even before India attained independence.
Subhash Chandra Bose worked very hard for India. Prime Minister Modi is also working very hard. Both have look east policy.
It was Mr. Misumi who was instrumental in persuading the Japanese government to invite Bose to Japan.
ボスさんだけはね、非常にインドで影響力のある大政治家だから、どうしても日本にもっと理解してもらわなきゃいけない。から地理的にもね、ベンガルの人は大体がインド人の中では日本に理解のある人が多いんですよ。そういう意味でボスさんにはぜひその先頭に立ってね、もっと日本を理解してもらって、特別に扱いでなくても、アジアの中ではやっぱり日本とインドが一番親しくしなくちゃならない国だということをね、ご自身もおっしゃってましたけど。
Following the arrival of Bose in Japan in 1943, Mr. Misumi came in touch with him. In Tokyo, Bose stayed in a room on the third floor of the Imperial Hotel's South Wing, facing the Hibiya Park.
チャンドラ・ボースさんはね、帝国ホテルの3階の部屋にずっとおられたんですよ。
帝国ホテルですか？
はい。でそこへ私が訪ねて行ってね、2人で一緒に日比谷公園を散歩しましてね、何回もやりました。
Bose appeared before the eyes of the Japanese people when he gave a lecture at Hibiya Hall, which was organized by Mr. Misumi. As Supreme Commander of the INA and as head of the Provisional Government of Free India, on 18th August 1945, Bose died in a plane crash. His mortal remains were brought to Renkoji Temple in Tokyo and preserved there. Netaji's liaison officer, Mr. Negishi, a Japanese, always accompanied him.
Before the war, my father worked in India for Mitsubishi Corporation. Mr. Senda, who recommended my father as a liaison officer of Netaji. And after that, when Netaji came by submarine to Southern Island, that time my father waited for him. That was his first time met Netaji. And after that, my father followed with Netaji. My father followed him to Saigon. And that was the last time my father met to Netaji. After that, Netaji flight to Taiwan, and he met the accident.
Although there are skeptics, this shrine has been visited by all leaders, like India's first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, President Rajendra Prasad, and the then Prime Minister, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, in 2001. Like Subhash Chandra Bose, Justice Radha Binod Pal is also revered in Japan. At a critical moment of history, when after the Second World War, the International Military Tribunal for the Far East was set up, Justice Radha Binod Pal, who was nominated to serve on it, demonstrated solidarity with the Japanese people. Refusing to pronounce the Japanese guilty of war crimes, he handed in a dissenting opinion. At the Yasukuni Shrine, a memorial has been erected for Justice Radha Binod Pal. As in the case of Subhash Chandra Bose, Mr. Misumi helped to organize various events during the visit of the then External Affairs Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee in 1978 and as Prime Minister in 2001. Besides, Mr. Misumi also worked closely when the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi held the Festival of India in Japan in 1988. There is every reason for India and Japan to celebrate the special strategic and global partnership between the two great Asian nations. Thanks to Mr. Misumi for his painstaking efforts in making this possible by spending each day of his long career, spanning nearly a century, on strengthening ties between India and Japan.
He is like a godsend to India.
He likes India more than Indians. He loved India in the bones, I would say.
Even though he has got on in age, he has a very, very clear memory of his association with Subhash Chandra Bose, with Justice Radha Binod Pal, and has a sweet sense of humor as he relates anecdotes.
He would always put his chairman in front, but he was working all the time.
He was excited, he was really happy. What he had been doing has been really awarded.
Prime Minister himself met Misumi-san, and after just a couple of months he has also decided to award him. So it's a really great moment for us.
He is a sort of legend between Japan and India.
सुभाष बाबू उनसे शेयर नहीं करते थे, गले लगते थे, वो सारी बातें वो बताते हैं। मैं उनको प्रणाम करता हूँ। वो सुभाष बाबू के एक बहुत बड़े निकट साथी रहे हैं।
India understands Japan better now. Japan understands India better now. But this is just a beginning.
人々が変わり始めた。遠く日本からやってきたこの男を信じてみよう。荒涼とした砂漠にいつしか日本語の掛け声があふれていった。およそ40年前に撮影された貴重な8ミリフィルムがある。そこはインドの村。一人の日本人が村人たちの歓迎を受けていた。深い尊敬のこもった眼差しが注がれているのは杉山達丸。人は彼をグリーンファーザー、緑の父と呼ぶ。の電話が彼のその後の運命を変える。インドの初代首相ネールからの電話だった。インドの留学生を多く受け入れていた経緯から達丸へ連絡が入ったのだが、その内容とは、
インドを助けてほしい。
砂漠化が進むインドでは農作物も育ちにくく、国民の多くが慢性の飢餓状態にあった。達丸はインドへ飛んだ。飢餓を救うのは農業だ。だがそれには水が不可欠だった。砂漠を緑に変えるような水を求めて達丸は来る日も来る日も奔走する。だが乾いた大地を農地に変えられるような水源はどこにも見当たらない。諦めかけたその時、奇妙な光景が目に映った。炎天下の砂漠で家畜の牛たちが休んでいる場所がある。近くには木陰があるというのに、なぜだ。達丸が牛が休んでいた場所を掘ってみると、そこにかすかな湿り気を感じたのだ。
砂漠にも水がある。
たとえ表面が乾いていても 地下水の流れるところがあるのだ。辰丸はその砂漠に木を植えようと考えた。目をつけたのはオーストラリアの砂漠で元気に育っていたユーカリ。暑さに強く成長も早いユーカリが地下水を吸い上げれば地表も潤い作物も育てられるのではないか。辰丸はそう考えたのだ。さらに実はインドの国道はヒマラヤ山脈の裾野を走っている。ならばヒマラヤから地下水が流れている可能性の高い国道沿いに植えた方がいい。そこで辰丸は自ら国道沿いの村々を訪ね歩き協力を求めた。
一緒に作物を作り豊かになろう。
ところが人々の反応は冷たかった。ユーカリの効果を力説する辰丸に誰も耳を貸そうとしない。今を生きるのに精一杯だったのだ。それでも辰丸は諦めなかった。ユーカリが育てば彼らを救えるに違いない。孤独な戦いを支えていたのは祖父から受け継いだ信念だけだった。インドの焼けるような暑さの中、自分の飲み水もユーカリに与えて植え続けた。すると人々が変わり始めた。遠く日本からやってきたこの男を信じてみよう。荒涼とした砂漠にいつしか日本語の掛け声があふれていった。木々の高さは15メートルにも達した。巨木は地下水を吸い上げ大地を潤し、街路樹が並ぶ道は470キロにも及んだ。ユーカリがもたらす恵みの水は周辺での稲作、さらには麦や芋の栽培などを可能にし、飢餓による死者は確実に減った。
私たちがこうして暮らしていけるのも全て豊かな緑のおかげです。
辰丸のシンプルな植林技術は村から村へ、人から人へと伝えられたのである。だが辰丸の行動はこれだけにとどまらなかった。飢餓を引き起こす要因、インドの砂漠化を止めることを考えたのだ。砂漠化の根源、それはシュワリックレンジ。シュワリックレンジはインド北部ヒマラヤ山脈の高地に広がる丘陵地帯。そこは日夜土砂の崩落が進み、崩れた小石や砂が砂漠の拡大に拍車をかけているのだ。辰丸はやはりユーカリが役に立つと考えた。地中にユーカリが根を張れば土砂の崩落も防げる。しかしそれはたやすいことではなかった。シュワリックレンジは全長3000キロ、日本列島を超える。ここにユーカリを植えるには莫大な費用と時間がかかってしまう。ところが辰丸は平然とこう言ったのだ。
何も問題はない。不可能と思わなければ全て可能だ。
なんと辰丸は祖父が福岡に残してくれた広大な農園を全て売り払い、そのお金をユーカリの植林費用の一部につぎ込んだのである。一部といってもそのスケールは半端ではない。現在の価値にしておよそ140億円。だが辰丸にすればそれは祖父の言葉に従っただけのこと。
アジアの人々を救いなさい。
辰丸はこの難事業に 己の人生さえかけていた。インドを飢餓から救うには砂漠化の元凶を断つしかない。気力を振り絞ってユーカリを植え続ける日々が延々と続いた。しかしその壮大な計画に辰丸の体はついていくことができなかった。脳一血で倒れた辰丸は志半ばで帰らぬ人となる。享年68。辰丸が挑んだシワリックレンチ。時を経て土砂崩れが頻発していた丘陵地帯は今とな緑に覆われている。瓦礫だらけの脆い大地が植林によって生まれ変わったのだ。祖父の教えを守り抜いた辰丸。村人たちの暮らしに豊かさをもたらした彼の思いはインドの人々の心に息づいている。
私たちは誓いました。杉山さんが命を懸けて残してくれたこの緑を我々も命がけで守り抜くことを。
不可能と思わなければ全て可能だ。不屈の挑戦、それが辰丸の人生だった。インドではこう言い伝えられている。独立の父ガンジー、緑の父辰丸杉山。